enter his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me. Axter, Paul, where we rise and don't fall.
Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. Today, I have a special guest, a returning guest. One of my good friends. She is the president and chief inclusion strategist for Exodus Consulting Group. She's also the author of, let's see the book, The Inclusion Architecture Blueprint, a 7 pillar strategy for transforming workplace culture. Sandy Harvey,
Yes.
welcome back to the podcast.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here, Baxter.
Yes, yes. We got our chit-chatting out the way. So we are ready to kind of talk business, but it's always good to see you. Um, I think that this book is super important, but in particular because of what's going on right now. But can you talk about when you initially kind of had thoughts around writing the book and just kind of
Mhm.
the journey to get it uh, done and published?
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, I've been doing this work for a long time around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I started when it was just diversity. That was, and over the years, we've added a whole lot of other letters and words after that. But it's never been successful when it is compliant
Mm.
or when you have to do this or you're mandated to do it. To me, the best impact that I've seen in organizations are those that tie this work to culture and to the expectations and bring in accountability. And so, having been in business for 8 years doing this work, I wanted to create something useful for readers at any level in any organization to be able to take this book and say, okay, I can implement this on my team, I can implement this in my organization, but it's not about quotas. This work has never been about quotas. It's never been about giving somebody something that they didn't deserve or earn or work for, but it is about doing the work in an equitable way. So I just wanted to provide tips and tools that I've used to help build strategy for other organizations. And I feel like, I'm like, just get it out of my head and put it here, and at least it'll get somebody started so nobody has an excuse that they cannot do this work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I know you're still doing the work, but you've had conversations with leaders for years now around, at different levels of an organization trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we get involved? What do we
Mhm.
do? And when one of the things that always stood out to me about you is if you're just trying to check a box, you would always say, there are other partners out
Not
there,
me.
right? There's other partners out there. And I think that's the difference between when you talk about including culture into the work. It's like it's the difference between like having a patch on your shirt versus um it being inside like the actual fabric of the shirt, right?
Hmm.
Because you can
Hmm.
slap a
Hmm.
patch on and go, hey, look at us, we're doing the things, but there's typically some huge disconnects inside the organization when you take a deeper look, right?
Right. Yeah. No, and you're spot on that because I often would hear, we just need unconscious bias training. And I'm like, no, you just need that. You need other things as well. And over the years, um, you know, there have been clients that felt like, and I know organizations that aren't even my clients that felt like, well, if we just do this training, we'll be okay. And I'm like, the training is not going to change how people treat each other.
Yeah.
It's what you do after it, after the training. And it's the accountability piece, which is a hard word for I've had a lot of conversations with executives. It's a hard word for them to really wrap their heads around. It's like, how do we hold others accountable for being kind and nice and civil with each other?
Yeah. Yeah. And what is your reply when you hear those types of questions?
Yeah, so I tell them, I said, it is, when I'm asking the question to most executives, I don't get an answer. Or it's, well, I don't know. That's a good question, Sandy. Nobody's ever asked us that. And I asked them, I said, when we do this work, how will you hold your leaders accountable for this? And so I've had some that say, I give me some time, let me think about that. And I to me, it is a very important question. I don't want to rush into saying we can create this strategy for you if you don't have a system after the strategy to implement it and to hold people accountable. Is it a part of performance, the performance management? Are we holding people accountable? Are we looking at retention? If you're a leader and folks just keep leaving your team, that's costing the organization money. That is a subculture of a larger culture that's not being taken care of. So there are a lot of different pieces, but that accountability piece, to me, that's why one of the pillars is leadership accountability. We're
Yeah.
talking about how do leaders hold other leaders accountable, but how are they accountable for themselves?
Yeah, because this work is going to be fragmented if it's only being done by mid management and
Mm-hmm.
the folks that are sort of on the front line per se.
Mm-hmm.
Without that leadership buy-in and accountability, um, it's not impacting the culture like it should. When you talk about accountability and sort of measurables, what does that look like? And I know it's not uh one size fits all, but what types of things are leaders should leaders be measuring and should be held accountable for when it comes to this inclusion work?
Yeah. Well, one of them I shared is retention, looking at what does that look like. There are a lot of soft things that have a huge impact. And I'll give you an example. If you are a leader in a meeting and you shut somebody down on your team, well, your whole team experiences that negative impact, right? And the one thing that is hard to quantify is disengaged team members. So when
Mm.
somebody becomes disengaged, they cost you a whole lot of money. I have been a disengaged leader before, and I show up, I do it. Like you say, you get by, you do your job. I'm not putting in anything extra.
Yeah.
But when we think about, accountability, succession planning becomes a part of that. Who's succeeding me? Who am I developing? Or am I being selective about who I'm developing? So kind of thinking about that of when we're talking about how do we quantify, um, other things are, leaders that are responsible for something, but then aren't held accountable. So I know what my job is, but I'm always late getting my work done, or I don't do it as well as I should. So those type of things, when I think about the impact that accountability has, it's high turnover, which costs a lot of money. It's and you can see this, and you would be able to relate to this. I I have asked executives over these past 2 years. I said, is your benefit utilization increasing or decreasing?
Mm,
Because that is from your culture. People are stressed, they're using their benefits more, they're out, they're on leave, spending more in employee relations cost. So I'm like, you are spending more money now than you did when you were doing DE&I.
yeah, 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 and it's that root cause that many times organizations never get to, right? They're blaming it on
Mm-hmm.
HR.
Mm-hmm.
They're blaming it on their, middle management. they're not really taking a look at themselves. Okay, what's missing? Where was the turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be a change in leadership. It could be some sort of fallout from something, right? And that really, really impacts culture in a way that it's just sort of unspoken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and to really pull those layers back, organizations need to be transparent and they need to be willing to sort of they need to be honest, right, with themselves. And for high level execs, that could be tough, right?
That is so that is so important right now because we see a lack of integrity and honesty at executive levels,
Mm,
across industries, and so you expect people to show up and you expect them to be integral. You expect them, to be excited about the work. I was talking to a colleague and they were saying how their organization had this huge return to work. So, mind you, and when we talk about culture, this is what I'm alluding to. Mind you, they were in a downtown area. So when people were required to come back to the office, they also are required to pay for their own parking.
mm.
Now, if you're an executive, you're parking at the building, no big
You
deal.
got
You
one of
get
them
a
nice
parking
spots that
pass.
says reserved.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I'm like, you're expecting your employees to pay $20 a day to park to come to the office to work because you need to see them, but they don't even have access to your floor.
Mm,
Because the elevator, they don't have, they're past. And so, we were having this conversation. I'm like, well, what does that say to people if you really want them to come to the office? What does that say to them? Because you're
yeah,
not going to ever see them anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. I gotta ask you this. Um, Talking to one of my folks in the HR space. Um, they were dealing with something at work. So they have this particular manager has, let's say, four direct reports. They're all sort
Hmm.
of similar similar roles doing, different pieces of a job in a department. Well, there was the decision to put sort of a team lead in between the direct reports and this particular leader. This leader already had tapped the one of the team members on the shoulder because they were doing some of this work sort of already, right? Um,
Hmm.
this leader tapped this person on the shoulder that just just happens to look like them, right?
Hmm.
Very similar backgrounds and that sort of thing. And HR was trying to tell them,
Hmm.
hey, understand you can't look at how this may appear. Whether your intentions are good or not, it doesn't talk. It's that equity piece, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
as an HR
Hmm.
leader, how do you walk someone through like just a really simple example like that?
Yeah. I mean, you have to start by saying, "Hey, I'm not sure if you're aware," because people aren't necessarily doing this um, because they're trying to be mean or rude, but also letting them know, we all have bias. And I tell folks that I'm like, before I do any type of bias training, we go through emotional intelligence, we go through psychological safety, and we talk about those things. But the equity piece, like you said, if I have the power and authority to select someone to participate, either promotion that what it's not, it's hard to say it was a promotion because if everybody didn't have access to it, it's not really a promotion.
Mm,
So, that whole access and equity piece becomes really important, and you are essentially taking that away. I try to help leaders focus on the growth opportunity is when me as the manager, I select someone that's not like me.
hmm
That to me is an indicator of my willingness to grow and to grow someone else is that I'm not trying to create a replica or somebody who, laughs at my jokes or who, will go out to lunch with me. Who is it that's not like you that you should be tapping in and putting into that space?
Because if we are, I've been doing a little cooking lately, right?
Mm.
So, I
Well,
got
you
my
didn't bring me, you didn't give me,
I'm getting there.
okay,
I'm workshopping some things, okay? So
okay,
bear with
okay,
me, bear with me.
okay.
So, I got my little Instagram, recipes I'm saving, and I got some stuff on YouTube, and I'm screenshotting things so I can, and I'm looking at some of these ingredients or some of these seasonings, and I'm like, what's the difference between this that
Mm,
they're calling for versus what I already have in my cabinet, right?
correct. Yeah.
Now I'm Googling the differences, and one is more so for poultry, one is more so for seafood. It's like, okay, I can understand that. If I'm looking to make the best meal possible, why do I keep buying the same seasonings and
Right,
not
right.
really creating that sort of whole, that full flavor that I'm really aiming for? And to your point, bringing folks in with different backgrounds and different ways of thinking and different experiences adds to the overall
Hmm.
flavor and culture of your team, your department, you name it, right?
Yes, it brings the depth in that we don't often see. And an important thing that I like to tell everybody, culture done the right way takes about 3 years,
Mm,
which if you when you say that to many executives, I don't have that much time. And I'm like, well, if you don't invest that much time, what you run into is that you have a half-baked culture. And I
mm,
like to cook cakes, and so you can't eat a pound cake that's not fully cooked.
yeah, yeah,
You can't rush it. And so in a lot of things, that's why I say this is an investment work, but it's also helping people retrain and rethink about how they see work. When you trust people to do the work, they become innovative, they're creative. When you're like, okay, tell me what you think, as opposed to let me tell you what you need to be thinking, and this is the only thing you need to worry about. And I'm like, that's not going to work in 2026 for our 5 generations in the workplace.
yeah.
You just can't do that same thing anymore.
I mean, what good is another person on my team that's carrying out the things that I want them to carry out without adding anything?
Well, think about it. We do it all the time. We when interviews take place, we get to hear the best of what people can do. We get to hear, well, if I was in this role, this is what I would do. We hire that person based on all the stuff that they tell us, and then we bring them into our organization and say, this is how we want you to do it. And I always ask leaders, I'm like, but you were like on fire because of all the things that they said they
Yeah,
wanted to do, and you were so excited. And now you say, okay, now come do it the way we've always been doing it.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, you see that a lot because the fresh ideas, the new ideas, they take work. They
Mhm.
take work.
Trust.
But 3 years to do culture, and really, really reset that foundation, you're taking more than 3 years every time you have do it.
Mhm.
And you're, It could be a mass, turnover issue, right? It could be, um, yeah, just the quality of your product or service, um, suffering because of what's going on internally, and it could be some sort of lawsuit.
Yeah, which is a lot of them going on now. A lot of leaves. People are taking leaves. Lawsuits are on the rise currently. Um, and turnover is minimally 1.5 times the annual salary
Mm.
each time. That's just like getting people up to speed. That's not saying that they can recover the institutional knowledge.
That's right. It's gone. Yeah.
It's gone,
Hmm.
because I can tell you most organizations don't do a very good job of writing, SOPs or anything, processes. Most don't do that. It's up in somebody's head
Yeah.
of how you need to get this done. And
Hmm.
then when they get fed up, they're gone.
Yep. Yep. And all that knowledge goes with them.
Yep.
Um, you have 7 pillars.
Yes.
We talked about leadership accountability as one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't want to say your favorite because they're all special in their own way.
Mm.
But tell me one or two that you've gotten the most sort of feedback around, or that's been really popular as far as discussions with leaders.
Yeah. I would say leadership accountability is a very popular pillar. Also, succession planning, because back in my day, we did succession planning. If you were hit by a bus tomorrow, who would take your place?
Yeah.
In 2026, there are a lot of companies that are still doing it the very same way, as opposed to really having a strategy around succession planning. I was working with one um, company, and they were upset because one of their, high potentials left. And I
Mm.
said, well, wait a minute. I'm talking to, the entire HR team. I said, well, what are you upset about? Like, well, we had them on the succession plan. I'm like, well, did they know? They said, no. I said, so wait a minute. You have this high potential that you want as a part of your succession planning process. Did you do any development with them? Did they know? They were like, well, no, we don't like to tell people because then they'll expect a pay increase. And I'm like, well, your high potential's gone, and the rest of them are probably likely to leave because they don't know that you're, on
Yeah.
your list. They have no idea.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a secret. It
Yeah.
should not be a secret. And that's what I find in many organizations. Succession planning is a secret. We don't want to tell people they're doing a good job because then they'll expect something from us.
Transparency from leadership.
Yes, yes.
It goes such a long way.
Hmm.
And leaders constantly get it wrong. They constantly get it wrong. And now you don't want them to expect anything, but now they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have gladly paid them more or whatever your fear was. But now you're starting from scratch because you didn't want to um show people that they're being seen, invest in people, and also give other folks an opportunity to see where they may or may not fit in this succession plan, because that's one of the biggest issues with employees and turnovers. They don't have clarity on what's next for
Yes,
them.
absolutely. Yes. Because we don't do a good job as leaders, um, you know, even working on career pathing. Like what is someone's option if they wanted to advance, or maybe if they wanted to move laterally? What are the options?
Yeah.
We just say, okay, you're hired, here you go.
Yeah.
without saying anything else about a person's future. Like, well, I mean, the days of loyalty to an organization, pensions, all of that is gone. So if your HR leaders and executives aren't really grounded in making the workplace attractive for team members, don't expect them to stay.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's like you're getting these results, you're doing stuff the same way. If you're expecting different results, you got to switch it up a little bit. You got, and it's not going to be overnight. None of the decisions that are truly important to leaders and their organizations is something that you can just turn on with the flip of a switch. It's going to
Right.
take time because it didn't the foundation and the culture didn't erode overnight, and it can't be restored
Mm-hmm.
overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's also getting leaders to accept maybe it's not, maybe they're okay with the erosion, you know? Maybe maybe they just realize, okay, this erosion is making us a lot of bank, but it's also hurting you in the end. I
Mhm.
mean, reputation, people,
Mhm.
being canceled. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And, I feel for HR leaders all over because they're dealing with environmentally and culturally what's going on outside of the workplace
Mhm.
that's coming into the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not that separation anymore. And for orgs that want to run that way, it's just it doesn't fly. It doesn't
Mm-mm.
fly with the newer generation. They don't see it as they see it all as part of their whole selves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not this
Mm-hmm.
part that they leave at home or in the car or any of that, right?
Yeah. And we don't do that. I mean, we don't leave ourselves anywhere. We all go to the same place, to say, you know, that, oh gosh, your personal life should not interfere with your work life. Well, if you don't have enough food at home, your personal and your work, I can't really be good at work, just like kids can't be good in school if they are hungry.
On an empty stomach, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. And I'll end this part with just to for leaders, team members are tougher than you think.
Hmm.
They are more resilient than you think. They would prefer an honest conversation of where they
Honesty.
stand than but a lot of times leaders they're taking the path of least resistance because they don't want to have the difficult conversation. Your team
Hmm.
members can handle it. They want to know where they stand, whether that means areas so that they can improve, what you see as strengths versus areas of opportunity for them, and let them decide if they want how they want to proceed, but don't leave them out in the dark because you're almost guaranteed to have them walk out, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it leaves a bad taste in the team member's mouth when they know, 2 weeks after you said, "Oh, everything's good," and then 2 weeks later, people start getting laid off. Well, they know that didn't just happen in 2 weeks. They
Right.
know you knew something.
Yeah.
So, I understand the whole, confidentiality, but just being honest with people goes a long way.
Yeah.
And treating people kindly, I can't stress this enough. I know everybody has the right to do whatever they want to do, but you should ask yourself, what's the benefit? What's the outcome? If I say this, if I do this, then what?
Yeah.
So we don't have to do that. I don't have to be mean to you to show you that I'm powerful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. There's much more power in uplifting
Restraint.
folks.
Yeah.
That
Restraint.
that too. That too. Um, before we wrap, I just want to say thank you for the work that you continue to do. It's not easy work. It was never easy work. In today's climate, there's been some additional um, obstacles, to say the least. But what it really comes down to, in my opinion, is just civility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Decency, and the understanding of what makes us great. And it's all the things.
All of it.
All the things, not this one way of viewing things, but if you're a company, you're adding products, you're adding services, you're not adding the same stuff. You're adding
Mm-hmm.
variety, you're adding
Mm-hmm.
pieces that will again give you a more fuller, more comprehensive sort of offering. And your workforce should reflect folks that are diverse in their experiences, their thoughts, and their strengths, so that you can flourish and in a real way.
Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
you're spot on. So yeah, I am I'm grateful for you and how you keep me in line a lot.
Impossible, impossible. But it takes a village. Uh, she is the president and chief inclusion strategist for Exodus Consulting Group. Let's see the book one more time. The Inclusion Architecture, yes, Blueprint, a seven-pillar strategy for transforming workplace culture.
Yes.
On behalf of Sandy, I am Baxter E. Hall. For folks that are listening, watching this, just know you are all capable. You just need to embrace your own frequency. All right. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, peace.
Bye.
Welcome into his brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe, share, and also hit that notification button as well. Thank you so much.
Financial literacy to authentic